Hi everybody, my name is Abraham and welcome back to the Sobriety Society International Recovery Channel. I'm a person in long-term recovery and I have been ever since November 17th of 1980. I was 19 going on 20 when I came into recovery and I never suffered a relapse. And that's not to say that I did anything special or anything that you can't do. That's why we have this channel, simply because we want to help people in recovery learn the core principles or the proven principles, successful ones that is, on how to recover. Last time we did a video, I told you about what you can expect. And I used a word called efficacy, but I didn't define what that word meant. It simply meant results. People get with me, and that's not to boost or brag about anything, but people get with me for one reason. I get results. Why? Because I'm living the very results that I'm talking about, that I'm attempting to teach to you. And if you recall in our last video, I aforementioned a book that helped me out tremendously by a guy by the name of Simon Sinek, which wrote a book called Start With Why. And I want to re-emphasize what my why is, merely because I want you, my listeners, to be clear on what it is that we do at this channel. My why is simply to teach people in recovery the needed proven principles to achieve sustainable sobriety so that they can live a life of significance and ultimately make a difference in the world. That's what I want to do. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive right off into the topic. I shared with you on last time not only what we were going to be doing, but I also asked you to get some tools of recovery. If you aforementioned or remember the story that we talked about, that master carpenter or that journeyman carpenter that I sponsored at one time, he taught me that if everything in your tool belt is a nail, you'll treat, or if everything in your tool belt is a hammer, you'll treat everything as a nail. So we need various tools to recovery. We already know that there are multiple roads that lead to recovery. And I think I shared with you one of the roads that I wanted to talk about, even though I know multiple roads, simply because I've been doing this for so long. I haven't mastered it, but I know various methods in which to teach a person on how to recover. Everything from moral recognition therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, smart recovery, but I choose to use a 12-step model. I told you last time that we needed you to get the big book dictionary, the 12 and 12 and the 12 and 12 dictionary, and I hope you guys didn't have a difficult time finding them. But I'd like to go off into something one of my viewers emailed me about, a question, when I stated that I was a person in recovery. And his answer to me was, why didn't I acknowledge the fact that I was an addict / alcoholic, or even put an adjective on it saying I was a grateful one? I used to do that, but our big book clearly states, if you look at the forward to the first edition, and I'm going to read the third paragraph on Roman numeral 13 in the large print edition. It says, when writing or speaking publicly about alcoholism, we urge each of our fellowship to omit his personal name, designated himself instead as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. It never said to put an adjective before it or declare yourself this or that, because what we're attempting to do in 2018 is something called recovery messaging. And if you are just limited to the rooms of a 12-step program, you may not have heard of the term recovery messaging. And basically what it is it's predicated on two things. One, it is going against the anonymity. It's letting people know that I am a person currently in long-term recovery. And number two, it is breaking the negative stigma on using negative words that we are supposedly trying to get away from, like doping, addict, alcoholic, all because why should I confess something that I'm trying to be delivered from? So with that being said, I want to also share with you why I chose to start the video series, because I told you earlier that I am an educator and not an entertainer. In other words, I find value by adding value to others and teaching them something, as opposed to trying to entertain them with a drug-a-log. That day is over. People want answers now. What I'd like to do is take you to, I believe it is Roman numeral page 20, XX. And it says something interesting at the top of the page, and I'll read it for you. I'll give you a minute to get there. Roman numeral page XX, forward to the second edition. And this is to explain why I chose to start off with this particular methodology, the 12-step method. We're going to cover a bunch of other ones, but I wanted to have a wide variety of approaches simply because we want to teach the person in recovery the practical principles that it will take for one to achieve sustainable sobriety. And there are many roads. So hopefully you have it by now. It starts off with periods were being ironed out. Public acceptance of AA grew by leaps and bounds. For this, there were two principal reasons. In other words, two principal reasons why AA grew by leaps and bounds. One, the large number of recoveries, and that's a conjunction, reunited homes. These made their impressions everywhere. Now, these are the statistical stats that prove, or the proof that the program works all the time. Rarely have we seen a person fail, is translated into never. So the program always works. It's the person that doesn't work the program. Notice these statistics. Of alcoholics or people in recovery, I choose to say, who came to AA and really tried, that's one for you to underline, really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. Wow, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. It kind of makes you question what's going on today with the global epidemic of opioids and various addictions. But some people are confused about what sober is or sobriety. And one of the things I wanted to do when I started this channel, if you guys know, the name of our organization is called Sobriety Society International. And let me explain something to you right now. I'm not taking a rabbit trail, but you can get abstinent and never get sober, but you can't get sober without first getting abstinent. So the question is, what is sober or sobriety? There's another fellowship that says clean and serene. Serene means serenity. So sobriety and serenity mean the same thing. Abstinence is clean. But guess what? You can be clean and never achieve the ultimate goal. And well, not really the ultimate goal, because our literature says a man or a woman is unthinking if they think sobriety is enough. But the question is, what is sobriety? What is serenity? I'm going to answer that question for you right now. It's simple. Everything in this program is simple. That's why we say bozo will get it and Einstein will miss it. In other words, sobriety or serenity is simply this: soundness of mind. Not a peace of mind. I don't know about you. I don't want a piece of anything. If I can't have it all, I don't want it at all. I am in this for not only soundness of mind, but the question comes, what is it that you are attempting to recover? The word recovery simply means that you have lost something that is valuable to you, that you no longer know where it is. So the question is, what have you lost that is of such great value to you that you desire to recover it? I'll tell you what it is. It's something you currently have. And what is that? It's your freedom of choice. You, like I, there's no big I's, no little U's. Prior to me coming into recovery, I had to discover that I didn't understand how to properly use my freedom of choice. We call that a will. That's why step 3, when we get to it, is so powerful, because God is asking us to make a decision to turn our will, which is our thinking, and our lives, which is the subtotal of our actions, over to His care, simply because our thinking caused us to make some certain behaviors or certain actions that gave us the wrong result. So I'm here to also dispel some of the myths. Don't let anybody tell you that you are the problem. You're not the problem simply because you never met you. That's why we're going through the 12-step process. And don't let anybody tell you that your will does not work. What our literature says is that you and I didn't use our will properly, the way that it was designed to use. I do recall reading what another fellowship said, a person with a substance use disorder, because we're trying to gravitate from addict and alcoholic. So let's say a person with a substance use disorder is one that lives to use and uses to live, simply because they feel to believe that's their only choice. But guess what? When you and I, or when a person recovers, they realize that that style of living or that lifestyle is a choice. Now they've made the choice to not use to live. In other words, they can live without using. So I hope that made some sense to you. There are a couple of more points I want to cover right now. And as we're going through this, I want you to leave your comments, and by all means, pose questions, because the simple thing about questions, all the answers are in the questions. The problem is most people never ponder the questions, but they're quick to give you an answer. So I want to show you something that leads us into page 23. Turn to page 23 in your big book. And I want to show you to back up what I'm saying, because opinions are like garbage cans. Everybody has one. But guess what? Misinformed men led me or gave me misinformed information. But it was until I started to read, to study to show myself approved, or like Brother Malcolm said, if you want to hide something from a brother or sister, put it in a book. They'll never find it. That's why topic and discussion meetings, and I'm not saying anything negative about them, that's why topic and discussion meetings are so well attended. But maintenance meetings or book or step meetings, they're very few and far in between as far as attendance is concerned, at least in my city. So while you're at page 23, I want you to look at the first paragraph, and I want you to see the first sentence. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Well, many of us know they're talking about the vicious cycle of addiction. And it's simple, it's twofold. It is a physical allergy and a mental obsession. In other words, you've heard the saying before, one is too many and 1,000 isn't enough. I don't know about you, but I understand, and I got very clear about it when I was 20 years old coming in recovery, that I couldn't pick up one and does not desire to have more. So I decided to smash the idea, and we'll learn about that in step 1 in our next video, where we have to smash the idea, and what that is we have to eliminate, I want to strongly emphasize the word eliminate, the reservations, okay? But I want you to notice what it says after the cycle of motion. Therefore, my mentor taught me, and sponsor taught me, that whenever you see the word therefore, it is there for a reason. Therefore, the main problem of the person in recovery, that's what I choose to use, or with a substance use disorder. I'm not trying to rewrite the big book, but I'm trying to remove the negative stigma. And I hope you don't find it offensive. Therefore, the main problem of the person in recovery centers in their mind rather than in their body. When you go to a doctor to get diagnosed because you don't know what's really going on with you, the doctor's job is to diagnose the problem. So we just diagnose what the problem is with the person that is actively in the vicious cycle of addiction. Something was wrong with you prior to you picking up. In other words, something led you to pick up, and once you did pick up, it made you feel comfortable about something that occurred to you prior to picking up. And I'll explain that as we go forth to do step work. But we just notice what the problem is. Again, the problem centers between your ears. It's not in the drugs. It's not in the alcohol. It's not in the money. It's not in the sex. It's not in the food. but it centers in your mind simply because you can't do anything without thinking about it first. That's why we use the jargon stinking thinking. Now I'd like to take you to the simple solution on page 25. If you would kindly go with me to page 25, you will see in the first paragraph that there is a solution. I often ask participants that I help in recovery a simple question, and I want you to see if you can answer it. If 2 plus 2 is 4, what's the problem? I hear a variety of answers all the time, but it's a simple answer. There is no problem. Why? Because you gave me a solution. Well, guess what? In your table of content, there's a chapter entitled Chapter 2 called There is a Solution. We just looked at the problem. Now let's investigate or get somewhat inquisitive about finding what the solution is. I'm going to read what it says. There is a solution. And notice it's an italicized print, so therefore the publishers of the big book spent extra money to draw emphasis to that particular statement. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the level of our pride, the confession of shortcomings with the process required for its successful consummation. In other words, they're saying right there, nobody likes to do step 4. You ever notice in meetings you go to, step 4 is the myth, the booger man, everybody's afraid of it. But when we get to step 4, I'm going to show you that. Notice what it just said again. Nobody liked the self-searching, the level of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. That almost summarizes the 12 steps, but let's keep reading. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. Why? Because we had been surviving and not living. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been what? Solved. Did you hear what they said? Solved. I told you 2 plus 2 is 4, so what's the problem? There is none. There's a solution. The problem had been solved. There was nothing left for us but to pick up the, here it is, simple kit, underline simple, kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We had found much of heaven, and we had been rocketed into the 4th dimension of existence of which we had not ever dreamed. You know, that's pretty powerful. That tells me that there is hope in my hopeless situation. If you're currently struggling right now, the reason why I'm setting out to do these videos and created this leadership training and personal development company for people in recovery is to help them understand that recovery or addiction is not a choice, but recovery is, and that you can make it if you, like we read in the statistic, really try. Let's go back to the statistic again. Let's look at what they said. 50% got sober at once and remained that way. Roman numeral page XX. I'll wait till you get there. Okay. 25% sobered up after some relapses. As being an advocate for recovery, I never, ever say that relapse is a part of recovery. However, the way I phrase it is, people do relapse. Why? Because one relapse can kill you. So I understand that people do relapse. Like the book said, 25% sobered up after some relapses. But notice what it did say, and among the remainder, those who stayed on with AA showed improvement. That means the guy or woman who wasn't even working on anything, just coming around people getting better, they got better. So in other words, betterment promoted them to get better, just hanging around people. That's why we tell people early in recovery, and those that are attempting to sustain long-term recovery, continue to stay away from people, places, and things. Not that those people are bad, not that you're not trying to be civil, but they are not thinking the way that you want to think. And guess what? If you're not working on recovery, you're absolutely working on relapse, because there's no middle of the ground. Last, what I want to show you is other thousands, you may find yourself in this category, came to a few AA meetings and at first decided they didn't want the program. But great numbers of these, about 2 out of 3, begin to return as time passed. I've heard a lot of stories about, hey man, I don't need those meetings. I know what I need. I need a job. I need to get my wife back. I need to get my kids back. And who am I to tell you what you need back? But I will tell you this. Again, an Abrahamism. I'm going to always give you an Abrahamism, a quote, a statement that's original. And that quote is simply this: the first thing you put before your recovery will be the second thing that you'll lose. Why? Because your recovery is the principle on which you should concern yourself with trying to obtain first. It's the elephant in the room. Now I want to take you to something before we close. I want to show you something that most people never get to. I want to show you the process. We've diagnosed the problem, it's our thinking, and we've come up with the solution. It is simply some simple spiritual toolkit. But now let's look at the process. It's on page 27. Let's look at it. Rather, page 29. The first paragraph on page 29. What good is diagnosing the problem and giving you a solution without giving you a prescription? Here is the prescription. First paragraph. Further on, meaning after page 29. Clear-cut or simplified directions are given showing how we recover. That's ED. Notice that. That's not ING. I can't help anybody on this channel recover if I haven't recovered. And I know that bothers some people, but all I can do is live in my truth. I have recovered and have been empowered to help others. That's why I started this channel. Our book says or uses the word recovered 20 times, and it uses the word recovering too in the same chapter. And that chapter happens to be to the wives, letting the wives know what to expect while their husbands were recovering. But I'm not saying recovered like I'm cured. No, that's not what I'm saying. I am delivered, and I will tell you this. What have I recovered? I've recovered my freedom of choice, and I choose not to use again. I believe it was Einstein that is quoted as saying, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. Today I have sanity, the opposite of insanity. Remember, if you're not working on recovery, you're working on relapse. Prior to me recovering, I was insane. Today, I am 100% sane. Okay, and that's what I wish for you. You remember we defined what the word sobriety was? It was soundness of mind, sanity, right? So, what I like to do is keep reading. It says they're followed by 42 personal experiences. Don't let a person tell you just read the first 164 pages of the book. Why not read the whole book, right? It's a textbook. A textbook is a book that is written from one mind, the writer, to another mind, the student. But in this case, more than 100 men and women wrote down what they did. And if you do precisely what they did, like I was shown, you'll get the desired results or the efficacy that they got, which is you will recover. I want to show you this in closing, the definition of a recovered person, because I've diagnosed the problem. I've shown you the solution. I've given you the process or the plan of action. Now what I want to do is show you what to expect, because as long as there's hope for your mind or your situation, there's hope for you. At the bottom of page 84, I want to read something for you. Last paragraph on page 84. Get to page 84. All right, I'm going to read for you. And we have ceased, talking about those of us who were once addicted. We have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even your addiction. For by this time, sanity would have returned. Well, sanity came back in step 2. You remember, came to believe that the power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. How can I restore you back somewhere you've never been? As a matter of fact, I remember when I got insane. I made this statement. Maybe you didn't, but I remember the statement I made. And it was simply this: I can't wait till I get grown. That was an interesting statement to make, because I've heard people in their older years, they make this statement: If I only knew then what I know now. That's an interesting statement, because in between that dash, from the time they made the first statement to the second statement, the question is, have you ever been comfortable just being you? And most people don't know themselves. That's my job, to introduce you, my viewers, to yourself by using a 12-step process. For by this time sanity would have returned. We will seldomly be interested in using, I'm just paraphrasing, if tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally. Why? Because we were acting insanely and abnormally. And we will find that this has happened when? Automatically. We will see that our new attitude or thinking towards using has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That's the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. Meaning, I can go anywhere I want to go as long as I'm going there for a purpose. And sometimes you may have to go with your sponsee brothers or sisters, and nothing's wrong with that, as long as you know the reason why you're going. As they say, you don't go to a bar and order orange juice, but what if your daughter is getting married? You mean to tell me you're not going to go and give your daughter away because they're serving champagne at the wedding? Come on. We feel as though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. That's all I ever wanted to be my entire life, is to feel safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, this is a serious line, the problem has been removed. What? Hold it. The problem has been removed, and it gets worse. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That's our experience, meaning those people who recovered. This is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Oh, that's key. It didn't say mental condition. It didn't say physical condition. But it said fit spiritual condition. That simply means to me that I have to be in alignment with God, the first 3 steps. I have to be in alignment with myself, step 4, 5, and 6, but I also have to be in alignment with others, 7, 8, 9, and guess what? I have to continue to maintain what I just obtained from 1 through 9, which is step 10, 11, and 12. Notice what it says next. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. You know what that means. We're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We're not cured. I want to show you that. I never profess to say that, but simply, if I don't bother it, it won't bother me. We're not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent upon the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must, there's one of those 168 musts in the big book, we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. You remember me telling you earlier that don't let nobody tell you your will didn't work? That's negative. That's this negative stigma we want to get away from. This line, just last line I read, just says it. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It's the proper use of the will. So that means I'm talking about me. It's safe for me to talk about myself. I am properly use my will. Why would God give me an ability to think if he didn't desire for me to exercise it? I just use it improperly. But now it's showing me the proper use of the will. And the proper use of the will is to be more concerned about his will for my life, as opposed to me being selfish, self-centered, and self-seeking about my own. Last but not least, I want to show you something on page 132. And this is going to disturb some people, because guess what? Most people don't take time to look in the book. But I'm going to show you this and I'm going to close. On the third paragraph, or the second paragraph on page 32, the last sentence, I want to show you something. And it simply says this: we have recovered and have been given the power to help others. If anybody subscribes to my channel, you see that there are 3 words on top. empower, enlighten, and equip. And that's what we're out to do. Why? Because I have recovered and have been empowered to help others. So please press the like button, leave your comments, and tune in next time. I really hope I added some value to you. And remember that God could and would if he was sought. It didn't say can't and ain't, but it said could and would. In other words, here's another Abrahamism. There is no chemical solution for a spiritual problem. This is your big brother in recovery. I'll see you soon. I hope you got some value out of it. Keep coming back.